Go for it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Eric. Okay, welcome everyone. This is the Town of Andover regularly scheduled Board of Finance meeting on April 27th, 2022. I'll call this meeting to order, 7 o'clock. Okay, we'll go ahead and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic to which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 2, which is public speak. It doesn't look like we have any members of the public in attendance other than the board. Okay, so seeing that, we'll move on to agenda item number 3, which is the additions. Oh, looks like we do. Marcy, I see you joined. Did you have any comments for public speak? We're just about to move on to the next agenda item.
No, thank you.
Okay, very good. Move on to agenda item 3, which is additions and deletions to the agenda. Does anybody have any additions, deletions to the agenda? Joanne?
I just wanted to add one agenda item just to have a quick discussion about the board clerk position for the Board of Finance. Nothing specific to anybody, you know, that's done it in the past, just kind of a little overview of some info I've gathered and see what you all think.
Okay, so do you want to make a motion then? I would suggest we're looking for a motion to add it as item 8B, which is discussion of the board clerk position.
Should I make a motion or does someone else do it? I don't know.
No, you go ahead and make that motion. I think it makes sense. I mean, anyone could do it, but I think that's what you're doing.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we, as a board, that I'd like to discuss the position of board clerk in the minutes and things of that nature.
Okay, so we'd add it as agenda item 8B, which would be under new business. Okay. Anybody want to second that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, Diane, any discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll go ahead and call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes. We'll amend the agenda to include item 8B, which is the discussion of the clerk for the Board of Finance meetings, as I understand it. Okay, very good. Any other additions or deletions to the agenda? Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to item 4, which is the town administrator's report. Eric?
Sure. I'm going to keep this brief since I sent a lot of this to you in written format. First of all, I wanted to apologize to the board and to Joanne for my outburst at the last meeting. That was unprofessional on my part, and I do apologize. Second, the only thing I wanted to say, other than what you've already gotten in written form, is that we did finally get our first allotment of money from our NIPS bottles sold by the Andover package store. So we got about $1,200 for our initial allotment from that. We also received the check from Kerma for the insurance claim for the well and the controller lightning damage that occurred last August. So it took a while, but they sent us the money. That's all I have unless you have other questions. Everything else I supplied in written form. So I'm not going to go over it line by line. Unless you want me to. Mark, you're muted.
Thank you. Does anybody have any specific questions for Eric? Joanne?
I'm not going to make a big deal about this, and I appreciate, Eric, that you apologize tonight. We've always had good conversations in the past, and I think it's it's good to have good, healthy dialogue. And I know that these are our meetings and we're able to talk about what we, how we're going to voice concerns. And I appreciate that. I'm a little taken back because this is the first I heard. You hadn't reached out to me all week, but I do appreciate it here, doing it publicly. I would have accepted it privately as well. Yeah, so I appreciate good dialogue. I've always had good conversations with you. It was a little bit of a surprise. And yeah, moving forward, looking forward to just being able to ask questions or voice our opinions. Thank you. And then maybe this, I have to wait for the finance department part, but I don't know if I'm allowed to ask them now or then, but will we have, we don't have a representative tonight from the finance department, correct?
Correct. Marina was supposed to be on, but she is traveling at the moment. She had hoped to make it, but
Okay.
and whether
Yeah, just one.
it was delayed or what the reason was, but she texted me shortly ago and said, I flat out can't be on it tonight. So,
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Other questions specific for Eric? Okay, hearing none, I guess we'll move on to the finance department report. I don't know, Eric, if you're going to address the particular items on here. We've got the budget summary, revenue summary, tower spending over expenditure items.
so I sent the members of the Board of Finance on Thursday or Friday, I believe, a copy of what my suggestions were for the initial round of transfers. And I sent you, as you had asked for previously, the budget in Excel form so you could manipulate it the way you wanted. And then I also sent you a version of that Excel form with all the headers stripped out and then sorted by percentage used. So you could see right up front everything where we're currently over budget. And then what fund transfers I was proposing in this round.
I had sent out earlier this week I copied everybody on it. The sample of the format that we did for the budget transfers last year that Sherry did for us. And I would very much like to see all of our budget transfers done in that format so we at a glance can easily see what account is coming from and what account it's going to. And I don't know if anybody's had a chance to look at that. We used it last year. Do you guys want me to send it to you again? I think I sent it Tuesday of this week.
Yeah, I have it. I haven't had a chance to look at it.
I do like the format that you sent, Diane. I had a chance, but I do want to say that I appreciate getting something. And truthfully, I don't mind stating publicly, I feel bad that our town manager has to do it all. So I can appreciate that he, made an attempt to get us something. I do like the format that you shared that I think Sherry did last year. And we'd expect to get that from her. I mean, I know Eric got us something, so that's good, but I agree. I like your format.
That's what the board wants. That's what the board will get. I would have preferred to break up the transfers so we do some each month, instead of having to deal with 70 or 100 of them all at once. But so be it.
And again, I don't know if these are questions for the finance part or you. Again, not trying to put an overdue burden on you having to sit there and put it in a new format, but it's, yeah, whatever, it's Diane's point. So whatever she wanted to make on that. The format that she sent is easier to read, but I do appreciate that you sent it to us.
Yeah, does anybody else have trouble downloading the modified expenditure report?
No,
All right, yeah, I can view it in the browser. I must have had it corrupted when I downloaded it, sorry. Okay. I did look through your suggested format, Diane. I haven't really compared the two personally, but it is pretty straightforward to understand that way.
Eric's format, and he did the best job he could. You have to read the text in the column in order to understand what's going on. And you have to know what the account numbers are, whereas in the other format, the account description and numbers there and saying we're taking it from this account and putting it to that account. Because I really want to have a visual of where the money's moving from and to. Because there's going to be a lot of transactions.
Any other comments or input from the board on that?
So are we saying, Diane, that we want to hold off until we get it? I mean, no one can see. It's just so easy. I printed it. It's, it'll have, you can't see it. Yeah, someone.
We didn't do the transfers last year until June. So, I mean, we can do them next month and then finish them up in June. If we want to break them.
Because I'm thinking one of the finance people could just do whatever Eric has provided us, put it in the quick format. And I think you're right. It would be easy to go through it, but I'm not saying that.
And the piece of information I do not know, because now we are in April and I'm assuming our expense report is through month end March. I want to know what hasn't been posted that we don't know about yet.
So I can answer that. The version I gave you was as of April 15th. And the version you got in the packet was after that. Because there's one more transaction on that one than there was in mine, because they did one additional journal entry. So there's not a lot of difference between those two. I had Marina specifically pull me one on the 15th because that represented the period after the town had cut checks, for the 2-week period, and done the correcting journal entries and corrected all the errors we had found in the things that had been posted incorrectly.
So you're saying the report we got in our packet is the most current?
As far as I can tell, that should be basically those two reports only vary by one,
Right.
one item.
Right. I guess going back to also this report, I am the person who really wants it in Excel. I get that, what they're going to publish on the website is going to be a PDF. But what is happening is I think you're getting the report in Excel, it's being converted to a PDF, and then it's being published on the website. So then unless the report is emailed to me, I cannot do anything with it. And this Excel format report has no data at the top to tell you the date it was run, what time period it is, or anything like that. So you can't identify it. So I just want to make sure. And then it also drops the department, the calculations for the department expended percent used, which is not a problem for me if I have an Excel, because I'll just drop a formula in there and fix it myself. But other people, it would be a problem for them because then they're going to have to manually do it.
That is a good point, but unfortunately, when you export this to Excel, you know, you lose some of the detail that you get if you take that same file and export it directly to PDF. So that is an issue. I don't know that we can address it with Edmunds. I know Marina tried when she was pulling the report for me, but she wasn't able to produce anything with, you know, the column totals. So,
If you get, I would like to at least know that the report that gets published, that it has the time frame on it, so we at least know what time period we're looking at.
Diane, when I sent it to you, the header, the name of the file is Expenditure Report as of April 15th, 2022. I put it right in the title of the file so you would know.
But the one that's in the packet does not have any information on it. And that is the most current report. So that's the report I am going to look at. So it's 2 seconds to add it to an Excel file. You know, if you send it to me, when you email it to me in Excel, if you don't want to put it in the report, if you put it to me in the email, I'll add it myself.
I mean, look, if you simply want me to put in one of the headers what date it was run, in the future, I would. I thought I had satisfied your concern by titling it with the date. So that's an error on mine. I will not repeat that. The next time I send it to you, I will write on column I what date it was produced.
So,
If that makes you happy.
And the
If
date
that's
it was
satisfies
run
you.
is not necessarily the date that the report was run through. I want the
Correct.
date range parameter for the report.
Correct.
Okay. Without those things, you don't know if you're getting the most current information. That's all I'm saying. You can't tell.
Okay, but I mean, ultimately, from my perspective, whether I manually put it in the Excel file or manually put it in the name of the Excel file, it's still the same information. But if you would like it in the Excel file itself, I would be more than happy to provide that.
So right now, what's out on the website for our packet, which is the public record, doesn't have any data information on it. It's got to be in there for the public record. What you send to me in Excel, I will fix myself. It'll take me 2 seconds. So I have one question on the expenditure report. And I don't know if you know, it's under the recycling department, which is 703. And the last 3 digits of the account number is 807, which is the mid-NEROC fees dash
Correct.
recycling. We have a year-to-date of expense of $4,178.16. Nothing in the current column tab. So there was no current information booked. Last month, the report had year-to-date of $1,152.37, also with nothing in current. So
Right.
what happened behind the scenes? I don't know.
So what happened was Marina had booked the mid-NEROC annual fee under tipping fees because she missed, that was one of the ones I went through basically all the line items with her and looked at all the expenses we took out of every line and said, I think that's appropriate, that doesn't make sense. And anything I saw that we didn't make sense, we reclassified. And mid-NEROC, we had fees in a couple of different places for mid-NEROC that were incorrect.
So how come it's not showing a transaction in the current month column, the dollar amount, if we made that adjustment?
Because
That's what I'm
those
saying.
were,
The balance change and there's no transaction in the current month column. So I'm just trying to figure out what.
but would a journal entry show up if it was just transferring from?
I do not know. That's why I'm
expensive
asking the
payment
question.
Months ago?
I
I
do not
don't
know.
think so. I think it would only show up if we made a journal entry for a fee that was incurred this month. But that's a question I would have to research with Edmonds and figure out how they deal with it. I don't know personally.
I don't know. The number changed and I didn't know why. So, and I didn't see a transaction posted. So that's why I'm asking the question. If you're telling me journal entries don't show up in the current month column? I don't know.
I wouldn't think they would, because it would have been a reversal of something that was paid a while back. So,
It kind
Okay,
of probably
so-
depends on whether books get closed of the month and you have to
Right.
rebook it in a current month. So
Right,
it may not
okay,
operate that way. So it doesn't really surprise me that that's not set up that way.
okay. So
As
that's,
long as the year-to-date matches, which I think is the key thing, it needs to be the correct information year-to-date, right? So.
okay. So that answers that question. That's the only question I have on the expenditure report. Do have a question on the revenue report. I see that we've added 2 new items at the end of the revenue report, the connectivity grant and the Connecticut State Library ARPA funds grant. So my question is, these items here, they have an amount in the adopted budget column, and I'm assuming it's adopted budget. It just says adopted. And I see,
give me a
the amount-
couple seconds to pull that up.
okay.
Okay. What's your question again?
So I see that there's 2 new items, okay, added to the end of the report.
Correct.
Connectivity grant and then the ARPA grant for the library, okay? So I see that there's numbers in the adopted column, the numbers in the revenue columns, and then year-to-date revenue, and it shows that we received 100% of our revenue. My question is, why are there numbers in the adopted columns? Because those weren't part of our budget. And I don't know if that's just how it has to be done. Because yes, we want to recognize this revenue, but it wasn't part of our budget. So I see that it's segregated from other stuff. So this is a new item. So I guess I wanted to explain to me.
So, I mean, that's not a question I can answer, frankly. You had asked that we separate those out and not have them within the budget and have them as revenue. And, so we showed them that way.
Right, but I don't, my question is I'm expecting that, and I may be wrong on this. I'm expecting that the adopted column is for what you use as in your adopted budget, so you can track if you're excess or deficit. These were never adopted in the budget. We just want to track that we got the revenue.
If the alternative to that, though, would be having an excess or deficit that was 100%, right? So.
Well, it says we got 100%. We got 100% of the revenue.
But I mean, if you're gonna track a fund, you have to have, what money comes, you have to know what you've got. I
Yeah, so
do
we
see
have-
your point, and your point is that it was not in a budget that was adopted. And what I would say is the connectivity grant, because that was in the documentation we provided last year, even though it wasn't a line in our general budget, because it was a standalone grant, it was definitely acknowledged in the budget.
Yeah,
Was
but
it
we
not?
didn't, no, we didn't net any taxation off of that or anything. I just want to make sure people aren't going to look at this as to be netted off taxation, because to me, these are standalone restricted funds or grants used for a specific purpose. And those expenses should be booked directly against these accounts and not into the general expense of the budget.
Okay, so you want it to look like, for instance, a historical document preservation grant, which we have an adopted budget of 0 and a year-to-date revenue of X.
Right.
Okay,
And my question then goes, as these funds come on, like the connectivity grant, as we start paying bills out of that, we should have reporting so we can see the expenses being charged to that fund. And that
Correct.
all these accounts, even the community center account, need to be set up that way. Because I know
Yes.
we've had some expenses come through on the community center. Where are they getting booked against? I don't know how that works, is the question I'm asking.
It could be the software, right, Diane, is what you're getting at? Maybe they have to put it in there. I don't know.
So,
I don't,
You can ask
I
if
don't
you put
know.
that in. Yeah,
you know, one of the things we know is we need to stand up, we need to establish standalone funds for a whole number of things and convert a lot of our L accounts to standalone funds with, you know, revenue and expenses. You know, we had been really hoping we were going to get help from the auditor to do that. And the auditor has flat out said he doesn't have time to do that. So whoever we end up hiring to come in and oversee the department is going to have to take on that task, because, you know, we've got pages and pages of L accounts, you know, that have to get consolidated. And the same thing with bank accounts. I mean, I can't tell you how many bank accounts we got. We have a lot, you know, and we should not, no question.
But funds that we have that are active, we know what they are. So right now, we're doing connectivity grant work right now, correct? So when those bills start coming in, what are we doing with them?
So we have currently an L account for the community or for the connectivity grant, and we pay it out of that L account.
So can we get reporting on that?
Yes, you can. I mean, we could print you out the report on that.
That's what we need. I guess I'm saying I want to make sure that when a contractor gets paid, it's not getting charged to Town Aid Road or the Road Improvement Fund if it's supposed to be against the connectivity grant. And how do we account for that? That's a question. I don't know. I don't want to go over budget because this wouldn't be in the budget because that work is specifically being charged to this account.
Understood.
So that's what I'm trying to get so that we track. We have a lot of money in these funds and we're going to start tapping into them and using them this year. And we need to make sure that we've got that in place.
Right, and remember about a week ago, not for the connectivity grant, but for all those permanent funds you had asked us to track, we gave you an Excel spreadsheet which
Yep.
has revenue and expense for every one of those accounts. If you
But
would
I-
like the same thing for the connectivity grant, you could have that. I mean, if
Okay.
that's what you want.
Yeah, we should be looking at that. And the community fund, the community center fund wasn't in there. And I know we've paid some expenses for that.
You know, I'm just clarification, Diane. It sounds like this is a lot of, you're basically looking at the books every month. And am I reading too much? It seems to me like a lot of getting into the weeds here. And maybe we need to do that.
I'm going to tell you right now, and this is my opinion, we have a lot of errors in our reports. We're making decisions based on figures that we don't know are accurate. That's how I feel right now. We have a lot of money in these funds and a lot of money changes hands in those, and we should just be overseeing that. We should just see the bills that are being paid over that. What controls do we have in place that we're booking things to the right places? You know, chasing down stuff all the time and trying to fix it after is much harder than setting it up right from the get-go and just doing it the right way. So that's all I'm getting at is just being able to get some transparent reporting for us that we can at least see. I mean, I'm sure, once we start building the community center, we're going to want to see that money being paid and bills going out. once we start doing work on the connectivity grants and these restricted funds that have to be used for specific purposes, there's a lot of liability to us as a town if we don't pay eligible expenses in the right way. And it's just having the oversight on that, because there's nobody looking at this stuff.
Diane, if I may, I'm trying to, I understand where you're coming from. When we built the fire station in 1989, we had a set price that the low bidder bid, and we received bills after each function of the construction was done, like lot excavation, things like that. We had a running account of each item, from the excavation to the cement work to the HVAC and heating and plumbing and electrical. The book is so thick with all the different bills, that the general contractor received from the different contractors that he hired to do the work. And the committee, myself as chairman, we were privy to all that information. So we had a running account of every nut and bolt that's in that fire station next door. So that I understand. I think that's where you're coming from. And you're right. This town has never had a running account. That was probably the only one they've had. A lot of stuff's been done willy-nilly, and at least we had it. It was good. It was a good general contractor that did the work, and he had all his subs. They billed as they completed, and went along. So.
I'll give you an example just to try to make it clear. The library got a $15,457 ARPA grant, which has to be spent on specific items. Okay, so, that grant got booked into the expenditure report. I had, Eric take it out. So now it shows up on the revenue, but the expense for those items are still in the library expense, year-to-date expense, and it shouldn't be. They've spent all that money. We should have a report showing that they got the $15,000 and here's what they spent the $15,000 on. And now there's zero in the account. And then that report's closed out. It shouldn't be mixed in with our budget expenditures.
I agree.
Because it was a separate specific grant for a specific purpose that will have to be audited, and next year when the auditor comes in and looked at, and all that's got to be
So I'm not sure I'm clear. I understand what you're saying. You're saying that the expenses associated with this grant should not be in the budget?
Because we never budgeted for it. So this was a grant specifically for
But we didn't
COVID.
budget for the revenue either, right? But we have that. It's got to show up on the books.
So it's
I'm
on
not
the
sure I agree
revenue,
with that piece of it,
but we have to show the expenses against that, what we spent the money on. That's all I'm saying, is how we account for it. Right now, we have we have a library being over. Well, it's not really being over. We have 41,000 year-to-date operating expense
Mhm.
in there, and that's got to be $15,000 less. That's all.
So
I'm saying.
Diane, if you look at the actual budget, or if you look at the meeting packet version, you'll see that the library operations, that money has been backed out and put into an L account as you asked.
Right, but the year-to-date expenses are still at $43,000. So
No, the
basically,
year-to-date expenses
for operating.
are not at 40.
The
Are
report I
not.
have says 43. It's not 43. It's $15,000 too high, because we took the revenue out, but we got to take the expenses that go with that revenue and book it on the revenue. I don't know how you do it in your software, but because that way, you know what I mean? That way the library will be clean. It'll
I
be
guess
done.
what I'm saying is that if you look at the document that's in the packet, you'll see under library operations, which is 1001-800, it shows a budget of 26,289. And an expenditure of 100%. And 26,289 expended. It was put in library operations and you requested it be taken out, and it was.
Right. But we still have on that account line, year-to-date expense of $43,000, $342.
On what account line? That's,
On the library operations.
How much are you seeing down there, Diane?
$43,342.
This is on page 8. I think it might,
Yes.
am I looking at it?
Page 8,
correct,
library, the last line in the library section.
right. At least on the version I have, which is what's on,
Yeah, I don't see
Online.
that either. Yeah.
This is the report from the packet. So this is the most current report I'm looking at. So if you're looking at your report, Eric, it didn't have that in there.
I'm
No.
looking at the packet also, I think. And I
Yeah.
see 26,289 and then, yeah, year-to-date expended 26,289.
I have one that says year-to-date $43,342.
I don't know where you got that one, honestly.
I just want to say something too, because I know there's a lot of this going back and forth, and I can appreciate Mark's comment, meaning that it seems like maybe there's like a little micromanaging and getting, I understand. I think it's come from just the whole year and the whole process, of month to month. Diane has, and I'm going to bring up because I just realized that Eric's report talks about the same.
Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong report. Sorry,
Oh, go ahead,
Okay.
Diane.
take it back. I'm looking at the wrong report.
Okay, you can go ahead, continue, Joanne, that's fine.
Thank
ahead.
you. Yeah, I mean, it's been a kind of culmination of all year, maybe expectations and maybe it not living up to it, understanding there's new software, understanding there were new people in positions. Maybe someone always not being present, like tonight, maybe a Marina or a Sherry would have been able to just answer her question. So I think it's just a culmination of corrections having to be made and such, things of that sort. But, we are moving forward. The Board of Selectmen did elect to disband it. There's a transition, if they're the leaders that make that decision. But I do want to ask Eric, I did mention in an email, I know that the transition is for next fiscal year. And usually when you're in a current position, you're still going to be working on it. Are they still both actively working on everything until this fiscal year ends? I keep hearing you mention Marina, and that's, just to kind of understand how the transition's going. Yeah, we've had a lot of problems this year with maybe a rep not being able to be here to answer the question. Nothing personal on any of them. It hasn't worked out, but it would be nice just to have the correct information. I mean, Diane's had to do a deep dive into it because she's found a lot of errors. So that's all. I'm hoping the transition is going well, but the transition is for the next fiscal year. We're still, like in my job, if I was transitioning, I'm still here. So I need to still, I would expect you as the manager, I'm not putting you on the spot, but I've heard some comments that maybe the transition's already started. So I want to ask you directly, of course the transition has to start, but are they both actively still working on what we need this year?
Yes.
Okay, because you didn't get back to me. I had asked if we can expect Sherry or a board, or a finance department person to be at our meetings to answer questions and such. I asked tonight and you said no one was available. I know there's another meeting going on tonight as well, but I think it's just been a culmination of the frustration of trying to get the right facts and figures so we can make our decisions going forward. And I always compliment you because truthfully, I will say this to the public. I don't think it should be you updating the spreadsheet. I think that's why the management hired, put that task into place, hoping to have a really qualified, and I'm not saying she is or not. I don't work with her day by day, but, I'm sorry that it all falls on you. And my ideal picture of a town, I wouldn't think the town manager should be sitting there inputting it and have to answer for the finance director all the time.
Bottom line, for me, all I'm asking is for accurate information in a timely fashion. That's all I'm asking for.
Yeah, and I-
And that's a perfectly reasonable expectation. And I'm not happy that we're not meeting that expectation. But at the same time, we reduced staff from 3 to 2. We combined 2 departments. We changed the software. We changed the the chart of accounts, and we changed 100% of our personnel at once. And then we thought for some reason it was going to go seamlessly, and it did not. It has been a complete cluster, and I'm not going to deny that.
I think the Board of Finance, we have a responsibility to be the oversight and to make sure that things are there. I don't want to find out, oh my God, we have a problem and not know about it and not have seen it coming because we didn't have accurate reporting. So,
No.
You can't, a Board of Finance can't run without accurate reporting. That's the foundation for us. That's what we work with.
I guess I agree with that. That we do need to have confidence in the reporting and in the processes. And from that perspective, I understand what you're asking for, and I think that that's reasonable. I don't think it's an efficient way to run a meeting. Let me back up. For longer term, we need to have the confidence that the town's being operated, that the controls are in place, and that the expenses are being allocated properly, the funds are being set up, and we're getting rock solid reporting. Absolutely. Once we get there, then it maybe we don't need to spend a lot of time going through line by line by line, but I do appreciate what Diane's doing here, which is spending a lot of time going line by line by line, making sure that the stuff is right. Because you're right, we can't have it wrong. And it is obviously a lot more efficient to get it right and to do it right the first time. And I have a lot of sympathy for Eric and his team trying to get that done under the situation as you'd explained. So that's kind of
go into this detail. I would normally, if the reporting was good, I would not dive in like it. I would just be looking at it as an oversight.
Yeah, understood. And I don't disagree with you. So I think your point is well taken. And we'll get there. It's going to take some work, and it's going to take ironing out the wrinkles, and it's going to be taking maybe some processes, but we'll get there, I think so. Other specific questions or items to review here? Anything on the revenue report? We already kind of went through those. I think we're making progress. Check registers included.
And I just raised questions when we get into the funds, because I could recognize some of the vendors on the check register that they're the people we hired to do some of the architectural work for the community center. So I see that we paid them some money, but then I'm saying, okay, where are we booking it to? Next question, logical question. Just want to make sure that we have accurate information. Yeah.
Just because this is my final chance to address this, I just want to make sure. So Eric, you said that both Sherry and Marina are actively working together in both positions, to work with the auditors, just so that I understand it, because I don't know. With the auditors getting them everything they need, they're both trying to get the software to do what we need and what you all need at the town. So that's an active process every day for both of them.
Yes. So right now, two things are happening. Marina's teaching Sherry. There's a bunch of things on the school end that Marina does for the school that Sherry's having to learn how to do. Sherry hasn't really done payroll, hasn't really done their personnel tracking management system. So there's a lot of things on that end. And then Marina's also hasn't really done the reconciliations, hasn't done a lot of the journal entries. So, we're trying to do that. And I'm going over the books with Marina, basically line by line to make sure things are booked in the correct, and I've gone back to full oversight of payroll. So that's kind of what we're doing.
Where are we on the reconciliations? What month are we on?
have a
Good
follow-up there.
question. We're at least 3 behind right now.
So, just planning for the future, we're coming up to year-end close and, we closed last year way too late, so key to closing the year is having the accounts reconciled. Key to getting our budget transfers right is having the accounts reconciled to make sure that there's nothing we missed. So it all goes together. You just can't do one part and not the other.
I realize that. But the real question is, do we actually have the bodies to do everything you want and you need?
For the size of our budget,
Or did we get the right software? It's just,
well, maybe we don't have the software set up efficiently. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not in there every day working, so I'm not doing the day-to-day.
we'll just have to go forward. But Eric, you mentioned a key point that I'm surprised as a bookkeeper or an accounting thing, and it must run differently here. So I'm going to bring it up just because you said, do they have enough hours in their day? And trust me, I get that. In a busy job, right now, I feel like I have 5 bosses on my job and I can't keep up with all of them. So it can be frustrating for them. So it surprises me that a bookkeeper / accountant would be doing the school's personnel records. You said something about the HR and hiring, and that's an interesting concept. That falls under our bookkeeper accounting thing. I'm not trying to be fresh. I really just want to know because I do work in a school. That's my job to track personnel and years
So
of service and benefits and payroll and accounting and yeah.
well, who else is going to do it?
No,
mean,
well,
I don't
so
think that's the only
there's-
finance person they have, right? So.
We don't have any HR,
oh,
Joanne.
no,
so-
I don't, no,
Right.
I'm not. So Eric, this is really a calm conversation. I know you
Sure.
don't. I try to input. So in my train of thought, that would be a secretary that works at the school. I know that they only have it. I know how busy they are. So it's just how people set up their offices. We have 800 students and 6 different levels of administrative assistant. So I'm not trying to pick apart the town, tell them to, that was just surprising to me to hear that a Marina would do that. Are you talking, tying it to payroll, or are you talking their personnel in general, their HR and hiring?
I don't
And I'm
know
not
what
sure-
I
Yeah.
honestly don't know.
Yeah.
That would be a superintendent question, what the
Yeah.
exact breakout is. I know they have several, they have the same time clock system for
Mhm.
tracking employees that we have, which that's very definitely part of the job of the finance department is keeping that time clock system functioning.
Oh,
Because-
definitely with payroll, time clock, all of that. I just didn't know if she had other functions over there. If
And-
time's an issue, yeah.
there is a secondary system for personnel, and I don't know what that system is. It's not something that the town runs, because like, for instance, teachers aren't necessarily their hours and their vacation time and all that. That is not maintained within Prime Pay. That's maintained within a separate system. That is, as far as I understand, being done by Marina and Sherry, has always been the kind of business manager's responsibility at the school. On the town's side, whoever is in that position, in Marina's position, does have quite a bit of HR and onboarding responsibilities as part of there, because we don't have anybody else to do it. If they're not going to do the onboarding, then I'm going to do the onboarding.
No, it's, yeah, I get that, and I wouldn't think it's you. It just, that was really surprising to me, and I get it. I mean, usually, so in what I oversee, I will make this brief, but in what I oversee, we have 800 students, we have almost 200 employees, and I'm one person, like maybe 170, and that all falls on me. That's just one duty with the onboarding, welcome wagon, whatever you want to call it. But, we definitely have a bookkeeper. I'm involved in it with my tie to my administrator, but I'm not doing all of that. But we have a huge volume there. I understand. I don't know how many employees they have, but it can't be anywhere near the 150 that we do. So I'm just trying to see, that just surprised me that the accounting person, so we do have a database where you keep the employee data, which I think is important. We tie it in the same thing that the town uses. But again, I understand Andover is much, much smaller. I was just surprised she's the HR person there because she was hired for a specific role. Again, thank you. I know time's an element, how much time they can devote to the accounting of the town and the accounting there. So that's it. So good luck with the transition. I know it's difficult. Like you said, there's a lot going on, clearly.
Yeah, it'll be a couple of years. It'll be straightened out in a couple of years.
Okay, are there anything specific to the finance reports? In the finance department, I know we talked a little bit about that, but I do want to stick to the agenda. We've got stuff to cover, of course, but. Joanne, you're on mute if you're talking to the group.
Sorry. Yeah, he had it in his report and I noticed at the last minute, so I didn't want to lose my chance. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so budget transfers over expenditure requests. There are none listed in the packet. So we are not going to address that today, correct? Is that what I'm understanding? Are we going to?
Well, if you want it in the form that Diane's proposing, then we're not going to have it for tonight. We will hopefully have that for you next meeting.
Okay.
I'm pretty firm on that because I just want to make sure the transfers are, that I can look at them and understand that they're done correctly. And otherwise, I'm going to take what Eric did and create my own spreadsheet. And I don't know why we can't just use what we used last year. So we have the same format.
Yeah, I just looked at the summarized things. I can do either way. I don't have any strong feelings about it. I don't know if the other board members have had a chance to review the reports and comment on it. I think Joanne also suggested she liked the way Diane had the previous version that Diane had sent around. Does anybody else have any comments on that?
I think we should be as transparent as possible. So I agree with Diane.
Yeah. I think the data is all there. I think it's really just a matter of how you want to format it and see it so that it makes the most sense to people,
Yeah. They can understand it as well. Yeah.
I'm okay tabling it to next meeting unless anybody has anything else to comment. Any other comments or just suggestions?
Good with tabling it, especially because we got a little information on other things tonight, and then maybe it'll just be quicker. We can all look at it, and instead of starting now, it might be a little bit, yeah. But
All right, if there's no other comments, then I think we'll move on to our next agenda item. We have 7A, which is old business, the DOT Federal Local Bridge Program application for the Long Hill Road Bridge. Eric, do you have an update on that?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is the Board of Selectmen did authorize me to sign that and return that to the DOT, which I have. So we should hear back in a couple months that we're accepted. And then we'll have to continue on down the path on that. Nothing urgent. I mean, if we start the program now, if we're lucky, you know, somewhere around 2027 or 2028, we'll be ready for construction of that bridge.
Okay, any questions from Eric for Eric on that? Okay, hearing none, let's move on to 8A, which is the new business 2022-2023 proposed town budget. Probably should have really been an old business, but we've had lots of discussion on this. So there was a revised version of the budget that was voted on by the board at the last meeting, for which I wasn't present, and Eric did send around an Excel spreadsheet with those updated numbers. So do we have further discussion on the budget file that Eric sent?
I have nothing. I'm good with how it sits right now.
Anyone else?
I'm the same. I like where we're at.
I think the corrections were made or the adjustments were made, and we had decided that once that was made, we would be okay with it,
Yep.
at
Okay.
least for our first meeting.
Okay.
If we, well, let me comment, Mark, because it's my first go through with this. So if we go ahead, give it to Eric, or, you know, whatever the final wording is that you have to say, that means the meeting is next week, right? And that's in person. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, basically at this point, what it would be, it's incumbent upon someone on the board to make a motion to move this as the budget into the, you know, for the recommended town budget for the 2022-2023 proposed budget that would be presented to the town at the town budget meeting for vote. If there are no further changes or discussion.
And can I ask what the final percentage, you know, I always ask about that revenue sheet. Was it the 5.4, you know, that bottom line there? The money raised by taxation, were we at the, I don't have it up, so
It says 5.4.
okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I was looking at the right version, and I'm sure I was, but I had a few open on my computer too.
Yeah, the total by taxation is an increase of $530,551 at a 5.4% increase from last year.
Thank you.
Okay.
I don't know if someone's going to make the motion. But
Anybody want to make a motion relative?
I'll make the motion. I'll make the
Okay.
motion.
So is that Louise?
Yeah, it's me.
So-
To go ahead and take that, the current budget as we decided upon, to the meeting for next week.
I'll
So
second.
Louise is motioning that the board use the budget figures that were voted on at the last meeting as the recommended budget to be passed on to the town meeting, to the town for the town budget meeting vote next week. Does anybody second that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, Diane seconds. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. I guess we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody anybody voting against? Do we have any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes 7-0. We will move that budget voted on in last week's meeting onto the as the recommended budget to be passed out of the town for the town budget meeting. Okay, very good. Any further discussion on the budget?
Want to do a poll and see how many times we have to work on it?
I'm an eternal optimist, so I'd probably lose that, but we'll see what happens.
So, question, does the board want, I assume you're gonna want a projector set up? You're gonna do this via PowerPoint? How are you going to present this?
I would say yes on both accounts, yeah.
Okay,
And we do have the same questions on the ballot for the referendum that we had last year, omitting the bifurcation question. Correct?
so you formally have to, if you want questions, you as a board formally have to state what questions you want, a motion to that effect, and then the cards will be programmed for that for the when it gets to referendum.
So
I didn't even think we're at that stage yet, are we? I don't know.
I just want to make sure the cards are available.
Oh,
So
yeah.
Right, I was going to say that if you want to ask questions at the first referendum, you should make those decisions now. So the registrars have enough time to get them processed.
I don't have the information of what we had on there last year, but I thought it was, the question should be the same, except that one that's being addressed by the Charter Commission. I think it was basically town budget too high. I can't remember how they were, but it was just 2 or 3 questions were on there.
I'm personally not convinced we had any value getting, maybe we did from that.
We did, because if it comes back to us, we need to know which way to go. At least get a sense from everybody at referendum from the town, which budget they think is too high, which ones, you know.
Isn't it just, is the town budget too high? Is the school
Right.
budget too high?
Specific questions. It just gives us.
I'm sure Carol has that on file, Eric, and I could find it too.
Right.
Oh, I mean, if you want to ask, if you make a motion that you ask the same question as last year, then we'll do that. That's not a problem. Or the same question without the, yeah, that's, we can totally.
I just don't want that question on that. Do you want to vote on the budget separately question? Because that doesn't apply.
Right.
I think the other
Understood.
questions are fine.
Eric, can you remind me, I remember from last year, we had this discussion a little bit. The questions in the past at least have typically been yes, no, or too high, too low.
Correct.
And I had asked about a question of whether we could have a just right option. And for some reason, I can't quite remember now. It seemed, I remember being told no. Do you remember that? Can you refresh my
Yes.
memory?
So you can only ask A or B questions. If you wanted to do that, you could ask for instance, is the town budget too high or too low? And then you could ask a separate question that says, is the town budget acceptable as is, yes or no? If you wanted that third answer, but you can't ask, is the budget too high, just right, or too low? If that makes
Very limiting.
That's unfortunate. All right.
It's going to be
you'd have to get
confusing
your
for people if we try
legislature.
to do it that way, I think.
Frankly, I think I'll just be even more confusing, but
Yeah.
it frustrates me that we can't do it all in one, because then you're gonna get a bunch of people who don't respond to that question at all because it doesn't apply. But anyway, you kind of have to infer that response, and it annoys me, but that's just my own personal take on it. Thanks.
Well, and I believe Carol would be a big proponent of asking that secondary question, is the budget acceptable as is? you know, so you got that in a sense, third response, but I mean, there's no way to put out a survey that asks what would make sense, which is too high, okay, or low. That's just state law.
Doesn't the Board of Selectmen chime in on this also, these questions?
Well,
On
the
that piece of
questions
paper?
last year were questions developed by them. So.
That's what I
if
thought.
That's why I just think the
we
question,
keep them the same, then there should not be any issues. I mean, last year they had a meeting, you know, half an hour before the annual town meeting to do those questions.
Right.
So,
I just think we need a little time to think on it. It's hard, you know, to be asked on the spot again.
but-
you know, so-
but we have to have those ready in a week because won't it go?
Yeah, so we gave our input though. No, I agree with you, Diane, but again, I know it came up when Eric asked if we needed anything, so at least, yes, we'd like that available, but I think the town meeting itself is gonna give us a lot of info. So we had a public hearing, we didn't get a lot of people that showed up. So I'm looking forward to the town meeting because that's when you're gonna get some input too. I know everybody has busy lives, so that's all. I mean, the cards can be pretty basic, pretty same questions. I don't think it's gonna be, if that's okay with everybody. I mean,
Yeah, I just want to make sure that,
no, it's a good point, but should be easy to research.
and that we don't run out of time and someone say,
Yep.
oh, we can't do it now because it's too late. I just want to be on the record that is, I would like to see those same questions as last year.
Right. A very good point. And I will admit, I've got to go back and look at the charter and decide whether, I was thinking in my head, the Board of Finance had the authority to submit the questions. But you're right, the Board of Selectmen did it via a special meeting last year. So it is possible that the charter gives that responsibility to the Board of Selectmen, not the Board of Finance. So that's
That's
an
why I brought it
Eric
up.
review. Good
Yeah, I
point.
don't, you know, I don't know the charter by heart, but I don't remember anything about doing that, having that kind of power accorded to the Board of Finance.
No.
I don't remember anything that precludes it either, but, you know, I don't remember anything that specifically identifies that option.
Yeah, the other thing to keep in mind is it's more expensive if we ask questions. Because typically a town budget doesn't get a ton of people. The turnout rate is relatively low. If there's no questions, we would normally hand count. If there's going to be questions, we typically machine count. So there is some additional expense to that. It's not crazy, but we got to get ballots printed versus hand printing.
Yeah.
So
one thing we could do, if this is a Board of Selectmen task, which I suspect that it would be, is Diane, we could always, you know, make a recommendation to the board that the Board of Selectmen include these. And so there is at least the weight of the Board of Finance's opinion about putting these questions on the ballot, even if it's not our prerogative to do so. So that would at least put it on the record, and we could let the Board of Selectmen know that way that this would be our desire.
I would just find the information helpful if the budget fails at referendum, so we know, you know, what budget is causing the hardest problem for getting the budget passed.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're guessing, and I don't want to guess.
Yeah. Well, it's
I have a
all a matter
question.
of who votes and who answers, right? So there's a little bit of that going on. But go ahead. Was that Louise?
Yeah, last year, did we have a lot of people say the budget was too low? Did we have anybody say that the budget was too low? I'm just questioning whether that
I
particular.
can't remember the results. I'd have to go
Yeah.
look at my records.
I'm
There was
pretty
a
sure
Most-
people answered in both directions, but I also think that, you know, too high was, you know, selected more than too low, but I mean,
That's
it's
what I
not like
was-
nobody said too low, I don't think. That's
Yeah.
my recollection.
Yeah, I think
I-
Rob's right on that.
I guess I don't really care, though.
I don't really see the point of the question, honestly, just based on what we saw happen last year. And if it's a cheaper way of doing it and quicker, I would vote for no questions at this point. Because most likely, if it doesn't pass, my
Kind of
assumption would be that it would go lower. Because most people are going to think it's too high.
Well, which one? I mean, is there a problem with one? Is it going to be the town budget's too high, the school budget's too high, or both too high? Do you know what I mean? That's the
Yeah.
information I'm looking for.
Okay, now I see your point. Okay,
So I think we have to decide whether or not to take action here, and I would suspect that we may not have the prerogative to add these agenda items to the question. Do we lose Eric?
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I'm still here.
So if that's the case, then, you know, what we could do is, like I said, just make a vote to recommendation to the Board of Selectmen that they include these questions on the referendum as part of the referendum, or we can take no action and hope that they'll do that, if, you know, or we can vote to not ask them. Doesn't, you know, either way, I'm agnostic at this point. Or neutral, I should say. So if we don't have any motions on the table, we'll move on. But I think that's what it would take for us to take some action here.
Well, I would like to make a motion that we put the same questions, request that the same questions that were on the last referendum last year get on the ballots. So we have some information coming out of referendum if we need it.
Anybody want to second that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, Kurt seconds. Do we have any further discussion?
Just as a point of clarification, there was a modification from last year that you mentioned it before, Diane, so it should be built into the motion that there's one question we don't.
Oh, you're right, Rob. I would amend my motion to say, not asking the question about separating the bifurcation of the voting on the two school and town budgets. All questions except that one, because that's being addressed by the Charter Commission now.
Yeah, and I think that was clear from your statement. So normally we have to go through the motion process, but I think that it's legitimate. And Kurt, you're comfortable with your second on that
Yes.
restatement of the motion? Okay,
Yes.
good. Thanks, Rob. Any discussion on this motion? Any further discussion, I should say? Already discussed the topic. Okay, hearing none, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions?
I'll abstain.
Okay. All right, motion passes 601, and we'll go ahead and continue. Any further discussion on the budget question? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on in our agenda. The next item is 8B, which is the question that we amended our agenda to talk about the clerk for the Board of Finance meetings. This was the one you brought up, Joanne. Do you want to address this one?
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, just a quick conversation overall, because I know that we don't currently have a board clerk. So I just, I've researched it. I kind of know what different towns do or this and that. So I know that at one point, Marina had suggested coming to the meetings and possibly being our clerk. And she's not here tonight. Hearing how busy they are in the office too, I'd have a little concern about that. But overall, I guess, because we are the Board of Finance and how we're gonna pay this person and everything, I just wanted to kind of ask Eric in our public forum too. I've talked to him privately about it. I know that in towns that I've seen advertised and, when I've talked about it, I've done it a little bit myself in my prior jobs. It's sort of a per meeting position. So it's paid one flat rate. And I know in our town, we pay the person pretty well, so good for them. I didn't know if it's a per meeting. I think Eric said that at one point you get a certain amount. If it's over a certain amount of hours, you get a different rate. And then possibly more money for transcription of minutes. And again, we're not here to make decisions that the town makes on that. I just want to make sure that, number one, is this a per diem position? Because that's how you make your decisions too. I had printed out his options. When it is an employee that already works for the town, we just want to make sure it falls within the reasons that we don't get a situation repeat itself. We want to make sure the person just does that or whatever. Again, I'm not the employer in the town, but I guess I wanted to have an overview. And then, of course, if we do have a finance person that's going to take the minutes, it's good if they they should go at the beginning of the meeting when we do have a rep from the finance department. I don't know, then with all of the conflict and the problems that have arisen this year with this Board of Finance and maybe us having to ask certain questions or, the new software, is there a conflict of interest there with the person that would be taking the minutes? So, Eric, I guess my first question, and I did talk to you on the phone, but I forget, is it considered a per diem position unless it's a current employee?
So regardless of who does take the minutes, we have a flat rate per meeting. And then if a meeting extends past an hour, there's an hourly rate in addition to that. The flat per meeting fee covers the cost of generally attending the meeting, and then taking the minutes and filing the minutes in a reasonably timely fashion and filing the motions as appropriate. And then the reason it scales by the hour is because it's not necessarily fair to expect somebody who's doing a Board of Assessment Appeals, that runs 26 minutes to make the same as somebody who sits through a Board of Selectmen meeting that goes to 12:40 in the morning when it started at 7. So that was the reason we did it the way we did it. The flat fee is $65, and then currently they make $19 an hour, for everything over the first hour of the meeting.
And from my experience, I totally get it. Someone would get a quick meeting, someone would get a huge meeting. But when you are a board clerk and you do things like that, and you are so employee generated, you always do look out for the employee. I have to say that, you as a manager always lean, just in observing you for the 2.5 years that I have, you definitely always bring out that side. But I've been kind of in the middle on things because sometimes you get that quick meeting, which is great. If I get, when I used to do things like this, if I got $100 or $60 for a meeting, I didn't want to give it back because I had a nice half an hour meeting. So that's all. It usually balances, but no, I appreciate you giving us the explanation. So that we are allowed to ask the financial side, and I don't know how anyone, what you're going to do. I know it's not our decision who gets hired. The marina thing I just brought up because I was a little concerned about the conflict of interest if there's going to be a little bit of problems while we go through the transition and, how things were going to be recorded. I'm sure everybody there is a recording, so it's going to be honest, but it's kind of putting her in a bad position too. It's not just us or the town, that's all. So whatever we decide. So even in looking in the minutes about this kind of thing, I've noticed a definite difference in, some of them I really liked and some I'm probably going to ask that we don't pass tonight because they're really incomplete. I understand that with technology, we get the recordings now, we get a lot more information that we can see. But you've got to at least be able to look back if you're trying to find something and see a little snippet of it. That's all. So that's it. That's my 2 cents. I think it's important to have a clerk. And yeah, I just kind of wanted to understand the financial impact too, since we're Board of Finance.
Okay.
So that's it. Thank you, Mark.
Yep, thanks. I mean, I will state my 2 cents, at least as a starting point. I think it's valuable and important to have a member of the finance department here at the meetings whenever possible. I also think that it is problematic to have them taking the meeting minutes, and probably difficult, frankly, when they're trying to answer questions and follow the train of discussion. So, maybe that isn't as problematic or difficult as I think it would be for me. I think Marina had actually might have suggested it, but I'm not sure how that would work. So that's kind of where I'm at and on it. I certainly would be open to a board member taking those minutes, but I'm not going to volunteer for that. And I think that's a lot to ask.
I agree with you, Mark. I mean, if you're participating in a meeting, you cannot take minutes. It's just too hard. I've tried it a million times and I can't do it. I can't, it's too hard. It's too hard. Now, the flip side is that we record these meetings. So I think whoever clerks the meetings, if they're not participating in the subject matter of the meeting, I don't know if they necessarily need to attend. They can transcribe from the recordings.
No, that's possible.
It may
Eric,
make
you
it
got a
easier
comment?
to find somebody.
So we often do. I mean, I prefer that the individual attend the meeting. But there's, in a number of cases, we've had to transcribe from the minutes. And I will tell you that when I'm doing the minutes for a board that I'm actively participating in, I'm not taking minutes while I'm in the meeting. I start the recording from the start after the meeting, and I go through the whole meeting again, and I take minutes on the recording. And if I miss something, I pause it and I rewind it and I do it again. That's part of the reason why it takes a lot of time, because if you're going to get things right, you're going to have to listen to the recording multiple times. So it's not the hour of the meeting, it's the hour of the meeting and then going back and listening to it, until you've got it right, which I would also say we should, and if the board does not want a finance officer taking minutes, that is fine. I will have Amy take the minutes. My issue is that because Marina's a union employee, if we're going to have her attend the meetings, we're either paying her, number one, or we're putting together a memorandum of understanding with the union stating that she can take time off in lieu of. And right now I'm tight enough on the budget. I don't want to pay anybody I don't have to, anything I don't have to. So that's kind of my take on it. But ultimately, if you don't feel comfortable with Marina taking the minutes, then I will arrange for somebody else to take the minutes. And it's really that simple.
Well, I guess I'll, and I don't want to, and probably others have things to say, but, I said I was a little concerned about it, but, the reality is because of the recording, this is about as transparent as you get from a governmental process thing in terms of it's very, very visible later on. There won't be any questions about what is said, what was done, et cetera. So, maybe there's not any kind of inherent conflict that would be problematic. It's really, and if she can do it effectively, I guess I'd be okay with that. Other comments from the board?
I got a question for Eric. Who's doing the selectmen's meetings now? Or what do they do as far as the clerk goes?
So right now, when she's available, the same person who does the board of Gretchen Stein has done the last couple Board of Selectmen meetings. Although unfortunately she won and couldn't make it. She's been kind of overprogrammed lately. So Marina did one for the Board of Selectmen too. I don't have a lot of people, you know, we were going to advertise again for board clerks, and unfortunately, a really good board clerk that the town has, which is the one that does all the land use agencies, just announced today she's quitting because she's moving out. So we're gonna be short all the way around for, you know, we're gonna be looking for board clerks for everything at this point, probably.
I was gonna say, if not, we should probably hire our own. Put in our budget, the fire commission budgets for our clerk. It's in our regular budget, and maybe that's something that we should look at here. You know, somebody may know somebody or whatever.
I just wondered why we didn't advertise, and I think you picked up good people, but you never know. And I've said this before and talked to other people, there's always people that are looking for little jobs. That's when I did it, you know, and you can advertise or something, but you did say something else that caught my ear again, Eric, and I'm sorry. This is definitely not picking. This is just asking the question. You're very concerned with, I get it. If someone takes up the job and they have to, it takes them 5 hours to do it, that's their prerogative and they're getting it right. Especially if they are participating in the meeting. That's why it is kind of nice to have someone that's not participating in the meeting. If they want to start jotting notes while they're there, then they transcribe later. I feel like you're being a little bit too sensitive. It could take 5 or 6 hours and we're paying them. Again, I'm not a Scrooge, but I think you're again being very employee centered, which is nice. I'm an employee where I work, so I'm just used to management, you know, going down the middle and seeing, you know, this is the position, this is what we do. If like, say someone that like, say Joanne at home, this is her second job, she decides to transcribe it. I may be a perfectionist and it's going to take me 5 hours. We may not need a perfectionist, so we can, you know, but that's very good that you're anticipating that. But again, I think, it depends on the meeting. It depends how long it is, especially since we have it recorded. It could be something that someone listens to later. I'm neither here nor there if they're at the meeting or not. But that's all. I didn't mean to make it a big topic, but I'm glad we all chimed in with our ideas. I'm not opposed to Marina. I just find it very hard to take minutes and be in a meeting too. And we're really going to be counting on the stable person that's still in that department to answer our questions. And I don't mean stable, I just mean, I don't know who's moving where, because you keep saying Marina, but you told me that Sherry's involved too. But it sounds like we'll be seeing a lot more of Marina. So we'll have a lot of questions for her. That's it.
Other comments from the board? Go ahead, Eric.
So I just had Joanne, you brought up one other point, and that was every board gets to decide how detailed or vague your minutes are. I mean, I know you've expressed to me that you thought some of our minutes were not detailed enough. Yet, you know, Marina just got kind of yelled at by the Board of Selectmen for putting out minutes with too much commentary in it. So that's really a kind of a board's prerogative, whether you want very brief minutes because there's a full recording or not. That's really up to you as a board. If you want more detailed minutes, you can have them. If you want more abbreviated minutes, you can have them also.
Good point. I agree, because other people have given me their opinions, and it's just when you're looking for something. You're right. I did bring that up to you. I'm looking at we're going to talk about this later. Yeah, just like a synopsis of each thing. So I'm the new member. So whatever this I'll stand back on. But one I looked at and I didn't see anything. It just said this, and I'm like, I could have done that. And no criticism. So I'll see what the board thinks on how detailed.
Well, I think that's probably a separate discussion from having a clerk, although it is part of it. Other input from the board? Anybody else have any feelings about how we should manage this? Eric did send around an email in which he outlined some options. So there's certainly things to do. I mean, if we're going to pay Marina to be at the meetings, it does make sense to have, she's willing and seems capable, then, she does seem capable, I guess I would say. Then I would say I'm okay with having her do it, and just, how we do it is make a decision about whether she does it in lieu of other work, which I think is probably not practical because she's got
Busy.
plenty of work to do during her day job. But the other option would be, to have somebody else do it. And probably pay them, unless somebody from the board is willing to do it, and we are comfortable with that.
Is
I
it
don't, I guess I ask the question is, why do we have to pay an hourly rate? Why can't we just pay a flat stipend?
Oh.
If you so why would anybody want to ever do the Board of Selectmen meeting? Unless you do a stipend per, do you want a different stipend for each board and commission? I mean, how do you normalize it?
You may have, that could be a thing. If you have a more complex, I mean, obviously, we never do a meeting for less than 2 hours. It's rare that we're less than 2 hours. And I don't think any meetings, I don't want a 3-hour meeting. That should be rare. Do you know what I mean? Because we have an issue that we're dealing with. If things are running right, pretty much we can get through our meeting in 2 hours. I think the Board of Selectmen, depending on how much is on their plate, they may be a total different animal because they have more to deal with. I mean, I'm just talking about our meetings, I don't want to pay somebody by hour, and if they're slow at transcribing, that somebody can do it in 2 hours and somebody takes 5 hours. I don't want to pay somebody 5 hours to transcribe because they're just a slow worker. That's not in our best interest financially from the budget side.
Eric,
Whereas,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
go ahead.
Diane, I wanted to say, we don't pay for how long it takes them to do it. We pay them for how long they're at an actual meeting. Right? So if you have a 3-hour meeting, they get paid for the 3 hours. They don't get paid for, if it takes them 6-7 hours later to transcribe it, that's on them. They're not getting paid for that. They're just getting
Okay.
paid per length of the meeting, because the longer the meeting, the more they have to listen to and transcribe.
Well, let me ask this question. Is everybody married to having a clerk at the meeting if we have a full recording? The whole purpose of having someone at the meeting was before we recorded meetings and they were taking notes. If we're recording the meetings, can't we just pay somebody to just transcribe from that minutes? And they
Right,
don't.
but
have
wouldn't paying them for the length of the meeting still make sense, given the amount of work to transcribe?
You're still going to
Makes sense
pay
to
them
me.
one way or the other, I guess. I don't think that. I'm sorry, Rob. I didn't mean to interrupt.
I'm
you.
No, go
thinking of
ahead.
attracting people to doing the job. If somebody doesn't have to be on a call or a Zoom meeting for 2 hours, and they can wake up the next morning and listen to a recording and do the same work in the comfort of their home, it's,
Oh, yeah.
it's
Okay.
a pool of people to pull from.
And we do that. Like, for instance, this meeting, either Marina's going to listen to it later and transcribe it, or somebody else is going to listen to it later and transcribe it, and neither of them are at this meeting. So we do that. I prefer the board clerk be at the meeting, but I don't insist on it, because if the board clerk's at the meeting and she can't hear something, or she has a specific question about who's doing what, she can get it answered. She or he can get it answered right on the spot. So I think you have to be more careful when they're not at the meeting, especially, to state, we're going into executive session at X time, or we are starting the meeting at X time, or we are ending the meeting at X time. because the person with the recording doesn't have a timestamp available to them. So they just know, it's 2 hours into the meeting, so they could probably figure out at what time it is, but it makes life easier if whoever's the chairman, modifies their habits a little bit if somebody's not there, but it's definitely doable.
Eric, you made it perfectly clear. I thought you were stating, so Diane, it makes sense. If they do pay a lump sum, they should maybe, I would think, come to the meeting, but I was understanding that you paid some of the lump sum and then however many hours. But you just mean for the length of the meeting. So again, kind of Mark brought this up too. I'm glad to hear. So I misunderstood even when I talked to you privately. It sounded like this thing was getting huge, depending on how long it takes them to transcribe. I agree, especially in the virtual world. It's nice. The person still could be at home. It's nice to, if there's a time that they can't make it, we get it. And then they transcribe from just the hearing it. But if there's just a lump sum, I'm happy with that. I was really worried there was like a $65 for this, a 19 again, and I was just going to send examples of towns that have the lump sum. So if the transcribing is covered in that meeting, I'm very happy, and then they can take their time or not. So that's my 2 cents. If it ends up being just the length of the meeting, good. And then
Well,
they
the other side of the coin is if we use a full-time town employee, someone who works a full-time to do these minutes, then it puts them into being paid overtime.
overtime, or if they're
Right?
part-time,
I mean, do we want to open ourselves up to that kind of expense?
right?
Should it not be, if
That's
it was a
my.
part-time town employee, it would be different because there's no overtime that comes into
But then
play.
you run the risk of how many hours do they work, and then it leads into
Right.
other conversations. But I would prefer, my thing would be to prefer to have a board clerk. It sounds like Amy, or advertise for one that's not a town employee, that's either gonna up themselves into possible benefits or up themselves into overtime, to just be a board clerk. But that's not on me. That's my.
Eric, is time and a half really for 3 hours going to be more than the stipend plus the separate hourly payment?
For a 3-hour meeting, time and a half for Marina's probably. Yeah, she would probably be making more on OT than she would be making that we would pay for the supplement. But she would agree to do it for the supplement.
Okay.
But, because it's still making her more than she makes at her other part-time jobs. So it's still lucrative for her.
Okay.
If the town puts out an ad for one of these board member minute takers, would that person be doing it for all the boards?
Not
Is it-
necessarily. I mean, look, since I've been here in 3 years, we've advertised probably 5 times for board clerks. Okay, it's not something we've had a great deal of success attracting good board clerks. I know everybody says we should advertise for it, and we have quite a bit. Eventually we'll get 1 or 2. We've had some good ones. We've been lucky enough to have a couple good ones for, the land use agencies. Amanda actually did a pretty good job of board clerk, but there were issues with that, obviously. We haven't had a great deal of success attracting good board clerks.
It just
So-
would make sense if you hired one, the responsibility would be to do all the meetings, and they would probably still stay under the part-time status.
Well, first of all, you probably can't do all the meetings because the person who does land use, that person ends up doing more than just the meetings, because you end up having to help out a bit with getting the legal notices correct and some other things.
Oh, okay.
And the other reality is there's a lot of nights where we have conflicting meetings. So it's not like we can just have one board clerk to do every meeting in town. And the other thing is that, you know, there aren't a great deal of people that want to work every single night from 7 to however PM, and be available for special meetings on the weekends from time to time, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know,
Okay,
it's nice to have board clerks. It's nice to have backups. We have, as far as I know, there's never been a time when we've actually had backup board clerks. You know, we've always ended up begging and pleading an existing board clerk to try to cover a different meeting. You know, so it's been an issue since I've been an administrator. It was way an issue before I was an administrator because we used to not pay all that well and we never got good board clerks. So, I mean, part of the reason why I upped the pay and got the Board of Selectmen to agree with it was because we had historically had a real problem attracting and retaining board clerks that would do a decent job.
okay, good point.
This kind of brings me to a question that's kind of been bouncing around in my head since the beginning of this discussion. Is it the purview of the Board of Finance or any board really to determine in what method that they would have under which they'd have a board clerk operate and be available? Or is that just kind of an administrative town function under the Board of Selectmen to determine that, how that happens? Or is that not clear?
So my take on that would be a board should have the right to have a board clerk they're compatible with. You know, and that's always been an issue with the land use commissions, less so than with Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance. And but you know, clearly if you feel that having Marina take the minutes is a conflict, then we will avoid doing that. And I have no problem with that. Other than that, it's, you know, if you're happy with the way the minutes are being created from the person that's creating them, that's great. If not, then, you know, you need to address, you know, either ask me to address that with them or tell me to find a different one, and I'll find a different one.
Okay.
Isn't it a state statute that minutes be taken for all municipalities if you're receiving state and federal money?
Well, it's a requirement under the Freedom of Information Act. And it is you know, any virtual meeting has to be, you know, recorded, basically. You know, so that's like
I think
any,
based on Mark's comment, I agree. The town should be responsible for having clerks, you know, clerk the various meetings that they have to clerk. Plain and
Right.
simple, because of that FOI rule.
right, and we generally do, we don't, but remember, we have 20 or 21 boards and commissions. The only ones that get clerks are Planning and Zoning Commission, Inland Wetland, Zoning Board of Appeals, Board of Assessment Appeals, which has been more recent, but we instituted that because, well, because they were doing a really bad job of taking their own minutes and it was potentially getting the town in legal issues. So board clerk for them, Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen. As far as I know, every other commission takes their own minutes. If that answers your question.
I just want to make it clear that we have no problem with Marina at all. My only, you know, it's not a problem with her. It's clearly financial. Anything that I'm involved with just has to do with finances or that, and that's why I brought it up. I agree with Kurt, Diane, everybody that, Louise, everybody that's made a comment. I totally think it's the discretion of the town. I believe, let's just get a clerk if we need one, and we can't always just like, oh, it's hard, it's this, you know, we could try advertising and we'll see. And that's all. But if it's going to affect financially, because I know we're on the Board of Finance, you know, I wouldn't want it to end up like Diane brought earlier. So I'm glad we had a discussion of it, and however whatever you decide, it is good to have a clerk, and good relationships are great, but it's definitely a job, and the person will come here and do a job and hopefully do a good job.
So how does the board want me to proceed?
Yeah, I
You
think
want
that,
me to not have Marina take minutes going forward and advertise or get somebody to be your board clerk? And then pay Marina to attend your meetings? Or what is it that you want to do? Where do you want to go from here?
my recommendation would be to have Marina attend the meetings and prepare the meetings and prepare the minutes. You know, I know it's potentially some extra expense, but it just seems to me to be the cleanest and most efficient way to get this done and have her involved on a regular basis.
My question for you, Eric, if we have somebody like that, that is a town employee that's doing minutes, I don't want that expense to show up under her department. I want it to show up under the Board of Finance board clerk. That we'd be able to get all that
So
tracked correctly.
regardless of who does minutes, within Prime Pay, that person gets, their time gets charged to the department budgets, the appropriate department budgets, not to, like, for instance, Amanda took minutes for 5 or 6 different boards at various different times. All that expense was not booked as my administrative assistant. All that expense was booked as this meeting for planning and zoning, this one from Board of Selectmen, you know, so on and so forth, if that makes
Okay.
sense. That's why each board and commission that has a board clerk has a budget and a line item for that board clerk. The only problem with that is it's very hard to predict how many meetings a particular board is going to have. You know, so in the cases where we're over budget on board clerks, it's not for that we're paying them more. It's simply because they had more meetings than we budgeted for at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, so it seems like a reasonable approach. I mean, it's the way it should be, right?
And then just the last thing, if it is for that, I'll concur with whatever everybody thinks is best. I can be open to that. It's just that she would have to prepare the minutes on her own time. I mean, as the manager, she's a very busy girl, so this is a separate thing that she gets paid for. So it's not like she comes into the office and works on minutes because she's paid for a per diem position. That's all. Okay.
That is correct.
Yeah, because she'll certainly need the hours, as you've said, so in the office. Yeah. Okay. I appreciate the dialogue. I didn't mean to make it a big thing, and that's.
No. I tell you what, I'm going to just go ahead and make a motion, which normally the chair doesn't do, but I think that, we hopefully are reaching some consensus, and if not, let's vote and we'll take it to the next meeting. But I'm going to vote that we request Eric have Marina attend the meeting and prepare the minutes and pay her on the basis of the board clerk stipend for being the board clerk and attending the meetings. Assuming that the union doesn't have any concerns about that, which Eric had previously expressed would be an issue. So I'm going to make that motion that we ask Eric to do that and arrange it in that way. Does anybody want a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, thanks, Kurt.
And I have a question.
Yeah.
That's if she accepts that position, correct? What if she doesn't want to do it? But what if she doesn't want to transcribe everything and not get paid for doing it?
And we go to Plan B. We're going to have
Yeah,
somebody
well,
separately.
that's all I'm saying. If you're going to attract good talent, you got to pay them. Plain and simple.
Right. What
Gotta
I'm
pay.
saying is Kurt, is Marina is willing to attend the meetings and do the transcription as long as she's getting paid the standard, the standard meeting fee that any board clerk would get. And that's because that's more lucrative than most of our other employment would be, you know?
Okay, let's vote. I'm good.
Other comments or discussion? Okay, I guess we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
You opposed?
I'm just gonna abstain from this one because I really, I brought it. I'm just gonna, yeah.
That's fine. Abstentions, we have one. Joanne, anybody else? Diane, are you abstaining?
I'm gonna abstain. 'Cause I
Okay.
really like what I want to do.
All right, so motion passes 502. Thank you, everybody. Any other discussion on this agenda item? About the board clerk? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to agenda item 9, which is our approval of the meeting minutes. There are links to the meeting minutes in the packet. 9A is the Wednesday, March 23rd, 2022 regular meeting minutes. Is anybody, is there any discussion over this? Would anybody like to make a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, Kurt, anybody second it?
I'll second.
Linda seconds, thank you. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll go ahead and call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and that motion passes. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item, which is 9B, Wednesday, March 30th, 2022, special meeting for the budget workshop minutes. Anybody have any discussion or like to make a motion to approve?
I make the motion to approve is it March 30th?
Yeah.
It's as presented.
Okay, John makes a motion, Diane seconds. Thank you. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, we can go ahead and vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, hearing none. Thank you. Motion passes. I'll move on to item 9C, which is Wednesday, April 6th, 2022 special meeting minutes. Does anybody have any discussion or would like to make a motion regarding those minutes?
Which one did you say? The 13th?
April 6th.
Oh,
April
sorry.
6th, I have a correction for that one. So on page 1, under item 3, the last paragraph on the bottom of the page says that I made a motion to change the budget as indicated on the current spreadsheet as presented. And Louise seconded it. I believe it was Joanne who made the motion. It wasn't me.
Not what I was getting at. I'm fully on board.
No, I know. It's just that.
Okay.
Taking a toll on
It
it.
wasn't me.
What's going on?
That's the only correction I have on that.
I'm having some trouble. with
Okay, so
calculating my
Diane's
blood sugar.
making
Added
a
in rules to my
motion
regimen,
to
but
correct
unfortunately,
minute
it hasn't helped.
that this is near the bottom of the first page. It says,
Item 3 on the, and it's at the bottom, the
Yeah.
last paragraph.
Last paragraph, Vice Chair Diane Triquette made a motion to make changes to budgets indicated on the current spreadsheet as presented.
Yeah, I went back to the recording. I think that was Joanne. who's-
Okay.
Talk to myself.
Does the approach usually work for you?
Okay,
Listen, Doc,
you might want to second that motion.
That's not how it worked for a colleague
Okay,
today.
good.
I'll second it.
It doesn't.
Okay, thank you, Louise. Any discussion?
Like I do. Not if I have to.
Hey, Bryce.
Okay,
Something else.
thank you, Diane, for the correction, suggestion. We'll go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, any abstention? Okay, the motion passes 700. Eric, can you see if you can have a clerk make that change, or if you could make that change?
Well, that change will appear in the minutes of this meeting because that's when you
Okay,
corrected it.
got it. Okay, it's the first time I've had to deal with that and that kind of entry procedure. Thank you. Or Robert's rules. Okay, moving on to item 9D, which is the Wednesday, April 13th, 2022, public hearing and special budget meeting. Anybody have any discussion or motions regarding that? Those minutes?
I'm gonna make the motion to accept the minutes as presented for the April 15th budget.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up. Kirk, could you mute for a second? I'm catching some background noise. Can you say that again, Joanne?
I make the motion to accept the April 13th budget workshop meetings as presented.
Okay, to accept them as presented. Okay, I wasn't sure if you were making a motion about a correction. Okay, does anybody who have a second on that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, Linda seconds, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, we'll go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, any abstentions? I'm going to abstain because I was not there for the entire meeting. So the motion passes 6-0-1. Okay. Last item on the agenda, section 9 is 9E, Wednesday, April 20th, 2022, special meeting, budget for the budget workshop. Do you have any motions regarding those minutes?
Can we just discuss them before we motion?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Is my voice a little?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay. This is the one that's a little brief, and unfortunately, there was a lot that happened at this meeting. I don't think they need a lot added, but I wanted to, I'm looking at it.
Is there anything specific you would add, I guess would be the question.
Yeah, so I didn't really know the procedure when you want a little more. I don't think the meeting's been posted online. Eric, has it gone up yet to view?
No, it's not there.
Yeah, I didn't think.
If it's not, it should be shortly.
Yeah, I checked earlier. I didn't see it. Yeah.
Can we hold on these till, is it possible to make a motion to hold on these and make a decision?
Well, you don't really need to make a motion to hold. We would just, we would just table this, I guess, to, you don't really need to motion. I mean, we either approve it or we take no action, in which case it really would need to move to the next meeting as part of the, another meeting
If
process.
we could do that only because I would like to do that if the board would back me up on that. I just want a chance to view the meeting again and see if we need to add anything. Maybe I'll say no. Maybe I'm being too particular on this. It just looked very, very brief to me. But again, I'm not the majority. I'm just asking if we can table it one more month.
It seems reasonable. I mean, I wasn't at the meeting, so I don't have any opinion about whether there's anything substantive that occurred that needed to be recorded that it's not there. So I'll step out of that discussion. The meeting's not posted. I went to look to see if I could view it, but it's not posted yet. So, yeah, I have nothing to add.
If we have questions
Okay.
on it, it's not posted yet, at least let's get it posted so we can look at it and we can just table it for next month.
Yeah, I just wanted to view it one more time to see if anything needed to be added. It was just an inkling of when I opened, this was just very, very short, and the other ones are a little bit longer. So
Yeah.
if we're gonna, that's all. I appreciate if we could table it, but again, I'll sit back.
Yeah, it didn't really strike me as that much shorter than some we've had, but again, I wasn't at the meeting, so it's really capturing the substantive elements of the meeting. But yeah, it's not as detailed as some of the others. That's true.
Eric, who did these minutes? Do you mind me?
I think that was the last meeting we just had.
Mhm.
So Marina would have done those minutes.
Thank you. All right, whatever you all decide.
If nobody makes a motion to approve these minutes, then it'll be carried over to the next meeting. So it's really, automatically tabled there. Does anybody else like to make a motion regarding these minutes and for the meeting on Wednesday, April 20th? Okay, hearing no action, then we'll pass on that and it will roll over to the next agenda for the next meeting. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 10, which is our liaison reports. Do we have any feedback from any of the people on the liaison committees?
I'll give you guys an update on the community center. We had a
I'd like to hear that. Okay, yeah.
public meeting last Saturday, I don't know, April.
9th or something, yeah.
Yeah.
I
one of
was-
those days.
Yeah,
Good turnout, a lot of people came, a lot of questions that we recorded and a lot of feedback. Nothing totally negative, they brought up some good points. They asked if we can try and fit in more handicap parking closer to the building. That's something that the committee's gone back to the architects and the site planner to try and accomplish. Because we think that's really important. A lot of the other things were more things that would happen later on down the road. Does the kitchen have to be here? Or does this door have to be there? We're not there yet in the design. So, but we recorded all that information and we're going to discuss it at our next meeting in May and kind of go through all the questions that everybody had so we can, address them for everybody. But overall, it was good turnout. I was happy with it.
good.
We did get approval from the Board of Selectmen to go to RFP for the design build phase. So that's kind of where we're standing right now.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything to report? Okay, thank you, Diane. We'll move on to agenda item 11, which is board open discussion. Had a lot of open discussion this meeting. Do we have any other topics we should discuss? All right, hearing none, I guess we'll move on to agenda item 12, which is public speak. Looks like we have still a couple of members of the public. Or maybe it's just Marcy now. Marcy, do you have anything to tell the board or discuss?
I guess I'm the only one that made it. No, I actually appreciate that you guys all have something to add. You have a lot of conversation back and forth and just really grateful that you guys go through things pretty thoroughly. I did have a comment about the hiring in the town. I've been kind of thinking about a lot of hires that have been made and all that stuff and how it seems like the town is struggling in that area. And our business, we been hiring people all the time, it's consistent. It's not an easy thing to do. Kind of feel like we're always trying to hire, it's difficult in landscaping. It's like, it feels like the hardest thing ever and you can't afford to pay them anything. And, I probably could offer some assistance. I don't know if that's needed or desired, but it's kind of this something that I've been thinking about that I'm wondering, if there's something that we could do as a town or that I could assist in to help with that. But that's about it. I do appreciate you guys all, seem very professional and the meetings are really well run. So, I'm really tired because I work, especially this time of year, a lot. But I really wanted to, see the process. And I know that you guys have a lot of hard things to tackle. So thank you. You're muted, Mark.
Sorry, thank you.
I didn't hear you.
Thank you, Marcy. Appreciate it. Yeah, the question is probably more one for the Board of Selectmen and Eric as town administrator about the hiring process, but it is not a simple thing. So thanks for the offer.
Okay.
I think that's it, if nobody has anything else. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 13, which is adjournment. Would anybody like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make
I'll
the
make the
motion.
motion.
Okay.
Aye.
I think I saw Linda's hand up first. I'm not sure who was speaking there, but Linda makes a motion to adjourn. Anybody want a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Louise. Any discussion? Okay, we'll go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, any abstentions? One last time. Hearing none, the motion passes. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. A lot to be done yet, so appreciate the time